You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another review. This review is going to be a broad series review covering a franchise that has spanned multiple different mediums of media. And that is the HitchHikers Guide to the Galaxy. Now, the HitchHikers Guide to the Galaxy is an absolute classic. If you haven't heard of it, you're definitely missing out, especially if you like British comedy and sci-fi, because it's a British sci-fi comedy. It's also very absurd, but it originally was a radio series back in the late 70s, carried on through the 80s, got picked up again in the 2000s, and then did a final series in 2018. It was made by a guy named Douglas Adams. He wrote the original radio series as well as the novelizations, and also wrote the screenplays for the TV show, and co-wrote the screenplay for the movie. So there is a movie as well, obviously, and a TV show, if you didn't gather from that, as well as 5 novels that Douglas Adams himself wrote, and then a 6th one that was written after his death. My introduction to the series was the TV series. My dad showed it to us when we were kids, and I absolutely loved it. My dad used to show me British comedy all the time when I was a kid. I've also seen the movie, and I'm currently listening to the radio series, because I have a box set of CDs that have the first 5 radio series. The 6th one came out in 2018, so I don't think that's in my set, but I haven't actually double-checked if I have it. I'm currently still on the first series. I've also been reading the first novel. I've read the vast majority of it so far. I'm getting really close to the end. I have a big collection that has the first 5 novels in it. I might buy the 6th one eventually. I do think that the first 5 are definitely the ones that I'm most interested in, because they're the ones that were written by Douglas Adams himself, though. But I'm still willing to check out the 6th one. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a very weird sci-fi series about this guy named Arthur Dent, who escapes Earth right before it's destroyed with his friend Ford Prefect, who's actually from a remote planet somewhere in the vicinity of Betelgeuse. It's a very weird series, as I said. Ford himself is a writer for a book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is just kind of a encyclopedia of sorts that kind of tells you just a ton of information about the galaxy itself. Along the way, they get teamed up with a few other people. Zaphod Beeblebrox, who's the former president and con artist of the galaxy. He also stole a ship. And then there's Trillian, who's also from Earth, that Zaphod picked up at a party. And then there's Marvin, the paranoid android, who's a robot who's depressed and, hates everything. The series, like I said, is really fucking weird. I know I've said that a lot, but it is, because it does a lot of really absurd things, there's a lot of extreme conveniences, like Arthur and Ford being picked up right before they would have died in the vacuum of space, after they get thrown out of the original ship they hitched a ride on, which was a Vogon ship, which was one of the ships that destroyed the Earth. But not only did they get picked up right before they would have died, but they got picked up by Zaphod, who's Ford's cousin, to make it simple. Apparently Betelgeusians have weird relations, where they're semi-half cousins that share 3 of their mothers. And then Trillian, again, I did say she was from Earth, but she was actually at a party where Arthur was trying to flirt with her, but then Zaphod actually took her from him. Again, it's very strange just how these coincidences came into play, but there is actually an explanation for it, because the ship they're on has something called an infinite improbability drive that just does all this outlandish shit, and it makes it a lot easier to travel space, because you can program it to do something that's completely improbable. The TV series itself is only 6 episodes long. Supposedly they're making another TV series. We'll see how that actually turns out. I don't know. But currently the TV series is my favorite version. That's the one I've seen the most times, obviously. Like I said, it's only 6 episodes, so it hasn't really taken me that long to watch through it on multiple occasions. In fact, most times I typically do it within one sitting. If I had to pick a favorite episode of the TV series, it'd be episode 5, which is where they go to Milliways, the restaurant at the end of the universe. The restaurant at the end of the universe is the subject of the 2nd novel and 2nd radio series specifically. The movie itself is still pretty decent, but I would say it is drastically inferior to the other versions that I've experienced. They do some weird characterization with some of the characters, like they made Zaphod kind of dumber in the movie, because in the show, yeah, he wasn't the brightest bulb in the box, but they made him seem really kind of dumb in the movie, which, it's fine. I still like Zaphod's portrayal in the movie. It's definitely a little bit different. Also, Ford, I don't feel like was as witty and snappy in the movie as he was in the show. In the show, I love the smart-ass, kind of witty Ford that there is, even though according to the books, his culture doesn't really understand sarcasm, even though Ford is constantly making snappy comebacks in the original TV series, as well as the radio series. I feel like in the movie they tried to make Ford just act kind of weird and alien, and I don't feel like it worked as well. Trillian in the movie was played by Zooey Deschanel, and they added like this weird subplot that like focused on like romance with Arthur and Trillian, and I didn't really care for that as much. Like, it wasn't bad, but like they definitely made that a much bigger thing in the movie than it has been in the other versions, where he's trying to get her back, she kind of wants him back, and then, you know, it has sort of a romantic subplot. The movie also does take a lot of liberties introducing new concepts and characters, such as a plot where Trillian gets captured by the Vogons, and a scene that actually depicts the planet of the beetle creatures that worship the Great Green Arkle Seizure. So there's a lot of interesting things with that. You also actually get to see them go to the planet Vogsphere briefly, which is described in the books, but hasn't been depicted in the show. But obviously this review is incomplete because I haven't, gone and finished the radio series. I just started listening to it, and I'm only on the first actual novel. But that said, I felt like it was worth reviewing, and, the fact that it's kind of a disorganized mess, I think is fine. This series is kind of all over the place with the way that it works. It's like I said, it's very absurdist and just has a bunch of outlandish shit just kind of happen in it, like guided missiles turning into a whale and a pot of petunias, and the whale, you get to hear all its inner thoughts before it splats on the ground. But this is a very quotable series. It's what originates the sort of meme of the answer to life, the universe, and everything being 42. Because that's what was revealed by this computer called Deep Thought that was built many, many millennia ago. And was specifically designed for that purpose, and then Deep Thought actually designs what the Earth would be, because the Earth is a computer in this series. Again, it's all over the place, and I love it. It's one of my favorite British comedies, it's one of my favorite sci-fi series, and I definitely recommend checking it out. If you like British sci-fi comedy, like Red Dwarf, for instance, then I definitely recommend checking it out. The movie's still worth watching, but I definitely think it is the lesser version out of the four versions I've encountered. Anyway, that's all I really have to say. This has been Fugitive Red Eye. Have a good one. Toodles.
If I had just one love